Let's go.
Let's go.
Oh, did you want to?
Sorry, I'll let you.
Next time.
I'm in love with you.
Snap out of it.
I'll have what she's having.
Too many guys think I'm a concept, or I complete them, or I'm gonna make them alive. But I'm just a fucked up girl who's looking for my own peace of mind. Don't assign me yours.
Caustic wit is my religion.
I would make a great queen because I am so stubborn.
I say when it comes to stardom and Lauren, there are no accidents.
Hi, Karen Peterson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Citizen Dame, the podcast where we are right, everyone else is wrong, and you should just listen to us because we know what we're talking about. I'm Karen Peterson, joined as always by Lauren Humphreys Brooks.
Hi. Oh, God. Oh, Lord.
How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm actually good. Like I said, just before we started recording, I said there are some things that have gone on the internets, and granted, the internets are not always the best like overview of intelligent humanity, but I feel like it's been particularly stupid recently.
Yeah.
And there are times when I disagree with people, but I understand their argument. And I understand where they're coming from and like how they reach the conclusions that they do, even though I think the conclusions are incorrect, right? Or I don't agree with the opinion. There have been opinions that I'm just like, I don't know how anyone draws that conclusion without just being stupid. Because the thought process does not exist in my universe, I guess, or something. I don't know. But just like, I can only draw the conclusion that you are dumb. Like, that's it. And I feel bad for saying that you're dumb, but I think you might be dumb.
Yeah. Well, there are times, it's sort of like that whole thing where someone will be like, I can't fathom how anybody could possibly like this movie or could possibly hate this movie, you know? I don't know what I'm trying to say there. Maybe I'm dumb. But no, like obviously there's some way that the thinking makes sense to them. I just can't see it because it's outside of my entire scope of like things that make sense.
Well, and some of this might be the limitations of, like I say, social media is very limited in the ability to like explain reasoning and stuff like that. So there are definitely times when people express opinions that I'm like, I have no idea how you arrive at that. And probably they do have a very intelligent process, right? Mm-hmm. At the same time, there are like some just announcements or statements that I'm like,
hot takes.
I have no clue how you arrived at that conclusion, and I cannot like I cannot give credence to any of your opinions anymore.
Yeah. So one of the ones that we're referencing for anybody who is not on Twitter and has no idea what we're talking about, one of the things that was said this week was that Taxi Driver is more of a Paul Schrader movie than a Martin Scorsese movie, which I'm baffled. I'm completely
well yeah. Okay.
Martin Scorsese and Taxi Driver are like
synonymous.
Yes.
Like
it's symbiotic. I don't know. Like I don't think of one without thinking of the other.
Well, and I kind of understand the reasoning on this, although I think that the reasoning misses everything, misses most things, right? So Schrader wrote Taxi Driver. Schrader was heavily involved in the production of the film as well. Mm-hmm. So it's very often viewed as being this sort of, it's a collaboration, which it definitely is. It's not just driven by Scorsese. It's not just driven by Schrader. And, I've seen Taxi Driver a number of times. I've had long conversations about Taxi Driver. One of the things that, people kind of use as saying like, well, this is more of a Paul Schrader film. One of the things that someone said was that, well, it doesn't condemn Bickle's misogyny, which I don't know what movie you're watching. But I think that says more about the viewer than it does about the actual content of the film. Because if you're paying attention to the content of the film, this is not a film that is just like, yay, Travis Bickle. Like,
right. And he's not the hero here, like in Joker.
Yeah, exactly. And now and I think that that's where things begin to get muddled a little bit when you're talking about Scorsese versus Schrader, because people have this interpretation of Taxi Driver that comes from the content of the film, definitely, but ignores a lot of it. And so I think that that's where that's coming from. The other thing is that if you've watched any of Paul Schrader's films, you realize that Paul Schrader has been attempting to make Taxi Driver his entire career since Taxi Driver got made.
Yeah.
And I absolutely believe, based upon Schrader's other work, that he does not think that Taxi Driver is condemning misogyny or anything like that. I think that he probably believes that Bickle is a hero. That's not what the film does, but I think that that's what Schrader thinks. And so if you watch most of Schrader's other films, what's shown in his films tends to be a lot of very uninvestigated misogyny, a lot of anger at women, a lot of anger at God, for lack of a better term, a lot of, basically superficial theology, all of this stuff. So it's like Taxi Driver, but if written and directed by a 14-year-old incel. Like, it's that level of intellectual engagement and ability, etc. So that's kind of where I think that people are coming from. The Schrader argument is exhausting me, because I'm like, I don't know how anyone can watch that man's films and be like, oh, here's a great director, right? Or a great writer, particularly. I am absolutely convinced that all of the depth of Taxi Driver doesn't come from Schrader. It comes from Martin Scorsese.
Yeah, exactly. And in that way, it is every bit more of a Martin Scorsese film than a Paul Schrader film. It's like Scorsese kind of saved it from itself in a way.
I think from everything that I've read about the production of the film and everything, they were constantly at loggerheads. They were friends, but they were also like in constant conflict with each other. And it might be that constant conflict is what finally produced what we have as Taxi Driver. So you've got this tension that exists within the film. And that tension might be coming from this combination of Schrader and Scorsese.
Yeah.
But, which, and I would definitely give Schrader that degree of credit. But to say that it's more of a Paul Schrader film than it is a Martin Scorsese film tells me that you have not paid attention to Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
Or the films of Paul Schrader, or the films of Martin Scorsese. Or film generally, or have any sort of critical thinking ability. Yeah. Sorry, I just think it's stupid. I don't know what else to say beyond that.
The other one I'm completely baffled by right now is it's a very small number of people, but some of the discourse surrounding the second season of Ted Lasso. And we talked about this a little bit last week too, but it's just, I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't seen it, but there's something I just need to kind of just say. So if you have not watched Ted Lasso, I'm not going to give major spoilers, but I would recommend fast forwarding like 5 minutes. And I'll try to put in a tag in the show notes or something of when it's safe to return. But there's our beloved assistant coach, Nate Shelley. He's going on a journey this season. He's started to finally feel what it's like to be respected, to be in a position of authority, and he's not handling that well. And it's really clear from pretty early on in the season that this is a problem, that there's some mentoring and coaching that Nate needs in order to really be able to do this job well. And it's not happening because nobody's really seeing that there's a problem, because they're all so wrapped up in other things. And it was so weird to me earlier this week when I saw, I'm not going to name her because I don't want to shame her, because she's normally a very smart person, but I saw a critic that I respect who was just complaining about, like, I don't like Nate this season, and I just don't like where they're taking this character. And I'm thinking, how are you so badly missing the point? Like, you're not supposed to like where they're going with him this season. This is supposed to be deeply concerning. This is supposed to be a problem. You're supposed to not like this. And this just leading back into the like, are people just dumb? She's not dumb. She's not a dumb person. But this is one of those things where it's like, man, she's super missing the point. And I think a lot of people have been doing that just in general with a lot of things lately, and I'm baffled.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. You've seen a few more episodes, I think, than I have of Ted Lasso, but it was obvious from the beginning of this season that they were going in a direction with Nate. And one of the things that, and maybe people are missing it in the watch, granted, I have watched this show, so I watched the first season pretty much all the way through. I didn't binge it, but I pretty steadily watched it, right? Mm-hmm. And I also did that with the second season up until the point that we're now at, right? So now it's back to weekly for me. So I've kind of maybe had more of a continuum than some people because I came to this show late. So there's been more like, oh, I see what they're doing. You kind of see the plot beats of what they're up to and the character beats of what they're up to. But yeah, with Nate in particular during this season, it's been obvious to me, and it's not like they conceal it. They do the cutaways of him, like of his expressions, the little microaggressions that he has against people, the way that he reacts to the way that people talk to him. It's not just explicit, right? It isn't just like the scene with him and Rebecca and Keeley where they're trying to tell him how to be more assertive, right? Mm-hmm. It isn't just scenes like that's much more explicit, but it's smaller things as well. And so what is happening with his character is definitely building throughout this season, and it is this crossroads, right? He needs help. This is a guy who has been bullied most of his life. That's the impression that you get of his character. He's now in a position of relative power. He's being respected, right? He's being told that you're actually good at this. You're good at being a coach. There are things that you're really capable at. And he's never really been told that he's capable ever. Right.
Not even by his parents.
Yeah,
like his
exactly.
Mom loves him, but she still treats him like a little kid. And then his dad just looks down on everything he does. Nothing's good enough.
And so you've got someone who has been pretty consistently bullied their entire lives, who's now achieving a certain degree of power and rightful praise, right? His calling of certain plays have been very intelligent. He's smart about football. And because of that, he's getting this massive ego shot, but he also feels really, he feels wronged. And partially, somewhat rightfully so. He has been wronged in his life, but his response to it, he has no emotional intelligence to know how to respond to it. So his response to it is to do exactly what people have done to him and become a bully. Yeah, that's what's happening to him. And it's one of those where you're like, okay, this guy could turn into a great coach and eventually someday a fantastic manager, or he could turn into an absolute monster. And he's at that crossroads. And it's obvious that that's what the show is doing. That's what I don't get in terms of, like you're saying, people talking about his character, just like, I hate what they're doing today. It's just like, yeah, you're supposed to. He's this nice dude who is getting a little bit of power and is responding the way that some nice dudes respond to getting power. Mm-hmm. That's problematic. It's the geek who's becoming, Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so
I mean, not to that level, but yeah. Exactly.
I mean, no, that's an extreme example, obviously, but yeah, it's the bullied kid who is becoming the bully. It's the nerd who is turning into the person who can like exert power and meanness basically over other people, and he doesn't have the guidance that he needs to sort of to not become that.
Yeah. Well, and it's so clear, like you say, with micro expressions and things like that, but also in just the way that he makes sure to hold back certain conversations until he thinks that they're like that other people can't hear. Like he thinks it's just between him and whoever he's talking to. And that is also very much an abusive trait. He's not going to go and belittle someone like, I mean, he does do that too, but like some of the conversations he has, like he's not going to necessarily do that in front of other people because he knows enough to keep that, quiet. And that's part of the problem, because it's really hard for everyone else to see what's going on because he's doing such a good job of hiding it.
Well, and yeah, exactly. And it's like, I think that a lot of people are relating to him as though he's still exactly the same person that he was in the last season.
Right.
And by that, I mean the other characters, right? So the scene with Keeley that you pointed out, the scene with Keeley and Rebecca, where they're teaching him how to be more assertive. And he goes way too far. And they're like, whoa, bro, no. And it feeds into that speech that Roy gives to Jamie in, I think it's the 6th episode.
Yeah.
And says like, basically he's like, well, Ted ruined you, right?
Yeah.
and the point that Roy makes is that one of the things that makes Jamie a great soccer player is that he's an asshole, right?
Yeah.
Is that he's egotistical. He thinks he's the greatest thing since bread, right? He is an asshole. And there are times in the world of sports and in life generally where you have to be an asshole. You have to be assertive. You have to be that element, right, of your personality that is not something you should be all the time, but something you can be some of the time when it's appropriate. And that's what, and Jamie, amazingly enough, is emotionally mature enough to understand what Roy is talking about, right? And when Roy, when he says, well, does that mean that I can be an asshole all the time? Roy's like, no, when it's appropriate.
Yeah.
And Jamie gets that. He's like, oh, okay. Like he understands what is being said. Nate doesn't have that. No one has said to him, like, there are times when it's okay to be an asshole, when it's okay to be assertive or angry or to, shout at people. And there are times when you shouldn't. And you need to know when.
Yeah. They've also had very opposite journeys too, though, because Nate went from someone who was bullied actually by Jamie and others, who then starts to get more success and then more power. Jamie has had the opposite situation where he was on top of the world. He's the big star. He's the hot shot. And then because of some stupid choices he makes, he ends up finding himself in a position where he has to be humbled and he has to go back and beg for a spot on the team. And then he has to earn a key position again and all that. And so it's one of those things where he's more open to listening because he's seen that this could all go away for him anytime.
Yeah, and he's understood that his behavior in life has not really gotten him to where he wants to be, right?
Exactly.
So because he does lose his position. He does lose the respect of other people. Ted at one point says like, no, I can't bring you back so he does have to be humble. He has to go to Ted and say like, I'm sorry, I want to work on myself. He has to apologize to the people that he's hurt. Yeah. And that's how he begins to rebuild that trust, and how he finally gets to the point where Roy says, you can be an asshole sometimes, not all the time, sometimes, and so other times you're not allowed to be. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
and then Nate doesn't have that, and no one's noticing or paying enough attention to the fact that Nate doesn't have that. He needs someone to guide him in just the same way that Jamie was guided.
Yeah. And what's really interesting about Nate too is that he's not someone who's just learned how to say the things that are on his mind. He's just now in a position where he feels free to say them, because you see this, and it was so well placed because it was so subtle and you don't realize it. But in the first season, when they're at that away game, and I think it's the Make Rebecca Great Again episode, and Nate's written out his thoughts on what he wants Ted to tell the team, like each individual player, something that they need to hear. And Ted's just like, no, you're gonna say this to them. And it's not just like, like, Colin, this is your problem. It's like mean stuff. Like it's funny. And in the scene, in the moment, it actually kind of brings the team together. But these are thoughts that he's been crafting that are really, really kind of vicious. And so then when you see scenes like what's happening in season 2, and he'll say a certain thing to Colin, or he'll, you know, make certain comments to people. It's like he's been thinking about that for a while. He just now feels like he can say it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, yeah, I remember that scene in the first season, and being almost shocked that he went as far as he did, right? Because I thought that they were going to play it as, you know, oh, here's how to improve your game. It's right. But some of it's just like, yeah, nasty. And now I think that this show does have this engagement with the way that men relate to each other, and particularly men in sports, in this very high octane, high testosterone, you know, sort of manly thing, masculine society that is, it's very much, you know, embrace calling each other names and saying nasty shit about each other is kind of expected, and it is part of sort of camaraderie, right? It's just like, oh, you're a fucking idiot. So, well, you're a fucking idiot, you wanker, you know, all of that shit.
Which is why it was so easy to miss that as a sign of things to come in season 1. Yeah,
because it felt like, oh, Nate is, you know, he's participating in this masculine culture that hasn't really participated in before, in a way that is safe, in a way that is jocular, in a way that is not, you know, taken seriously, a way that isn't bullying. And again, he's had no one guide him with, okay, here's how you need to learn to behave, right?
Yeah.
And he is perfectly set to become a monster.
Yep. So that's our thoughts on Ted Lasso. I've only seen one episode that you haven't gotten to see. Okay. If you've watched this week's episode, you're almost totally caught up. Right. You haven't given us the rest of the season yet. So
right.
Next week's is powerful. So
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's good.
I mean, there are definitely shows that have flubbed this in the past, and so I'm not necessarily, you know, it's possible that Ted Lasso could go that way and could wind up fucking up what they've set up. I have enough trust in them, given what they did in the first season, that I don't think they're going to fuck it up. They might. So, you know, everybody, we're talking about this, everybody that has made these objections might be 100% correct. But I think that given the way that they've set everything up, I doubt that they are going to mess it up.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if they're not able to bring this home in the right way. All right. Well, I have a question for you, Lauren. This is not on the agenda. This is just something that I was just, the other day I was watching something and I was just, sometimes you watch something that you just don't love. And then it's like, wait, do I even like movies anymore? I don't know. Maybe I don't. And it's funny because I remember having that thought, but right at this moment, I can't even remember what movie I was watching that sparked that thought. But anyway, my question for you is, what do you like about movies?
Ooh, what do I like about movies? I mean, I think at a personal level, there are definitely certain films that I was thinking about this something similar the other day when I was watching Theater of Blood, which I want to talk about later.
Yes.
Which was that there are some films, and this is true for, I think, all kinds of literature, art, everything, right? But there's some films that I watch, and I'm like, isn't it amazing that someone has actually made a movie specifically for me, right? That specifically addresses everything that I love, my sense of humor, my, sense of the macabre, all of those things. And so that's what I was thinking when I was watching Theater of Blood. And there are a few films that are like that, where I'm just like, this, I think that one of the things that I love about movies is the fact that films can address something in you. So I think that film is one of those mediums, because it's this amalgamated medium, that it has music and image and, acting performances and just everything that goes into the single medium that is just this almost total sensory experience. The only thing they can't give you is like taste and smell. And even some films try to do that. And I think that that's what I love about it, is that it can really immerse you in this world and sometimes feel like it's addressing you personally, right? feel like
Mm-hmm.
that this is an experience that I understand, or this is something that I love, and that another person and group of people also love and have managed to like put on film and encapsulate forever. Like I think that film. I like film criticism. Uh, I, I like film criticism in the same way that I like literature, in that there's so much that goes into a piece of art like cinema, that you can sit and analyze it. You know, I've seen films like So and Vanishes and Theater Blood, all of these films numerous times, and still I can find something new about them. Still I can find something new to talk about, and my thoughts change over the course of, uh, over the course of my life. So there are films that I've seen multiple times at different points in my life that I have a very different relationship to now. And I like that too. So that's what I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah. I mean, I think that pretty much, I think people who love film, I probably could give very similar answers. I think there's just something about being able to watch a story that might not have anything to do with what I'm going through in my life. Um, may not have people that are anything like me, and yet I can take something away that I feel like I can use, or can look at a situation I'm facing in a different way or with new perspective. It also is a window into new cultures and new people. And I think the biggest thing I've gotten out of watching movies is just a more empathetic view of the world. And that, and it's funny because that can come even just in watching, like the Pixar movie that was out earlier this year, Luca, is so cute. And it's like, these two boys that are friends and they meet this girl, but the boys are actually sea monsters. And it's like, oh yeah, that's silly and adorable. But it's also just this really, really sweet story about acceptance and about, you know, the other, and not treating people like they're outsiders. And and so it's like, even in really simple and cute stories, there's some really beautiful messages. And I love that.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have to remember when I'm watching a movie that I'm like, oh, this is terrible. I have to remember, but movies are good. Like even bad movies, I can get something good out of it, or the experience can be worthwhile, or
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I do think that, particularly in recent years where I've sort of pushed myself. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm getting a little thing that says my connection is unstable.
Uh-oh.
There have been moments where I feel like I've pushed myself to watch a wider variety of films, right? When I was younger, I watched a lot of like classic Hollywood, right? And those are very good films, and there's a lot of good stuff in them, but trying to be like, okay, I want to watch more films made by Black filmmakers, made by women filmmakers and LGBTQ filmmakers, writers, directors, producers, etc., and more films from other cultures again. And it is that relationship to empathy, to be like, I get to take the perspective of people that are not like me, right? I am a cisgender white woman. So I have a very particular experience, and I have a particular experience of oppression and of what that feels like. But I'm not as oppressed as a lot of people. But I also think that those films are not necessarily about oppression. It's not necessarily about pushing back against whatever the white mainstream is. Those films are also about just cultural concerns and people as people, human beings, right? Human beings relating to each other and being human. And I think that is definitely something that film can do really well.
Mm-hmm.
Is make us engage with other perspectives and make us empathize, like you say, empathize with other perspectives. And not necessarily say, oh, I know what it feels like to be a Black woman, or I know what it feels like to be a transgender woman, or anything like that. But I can look at them and be like, yes, I understand this. I can at least, try kind of empathize with you and understand how you feel, even though I can never completely experience it. And film is very good at doing that.
Mm-hmm. There are a lot of times where I've been like, wow, this is a situation that I've never considered before. Or, like, I don't know why, this is kind of random, but the movie that just popped into my head was The Florida Project. And I know that there are people that are in dire situations that are living in motels all across the country, and like there's extreme poverty in a country that is so rich, and it's ridiculous that there's extreme poverty here. And seeing a movie like that, where it's told through the perspective of a kid who doesn't even know that she shouldn't love the life that she has, she thinks everything's great, more or less. I mean, she knows not everything is perfect, but she doesn't care that she's living in a motel. She's got her friends, she gets to run around and do whatever she wants. But we, as viewers watching her story, can see the tragedy of it, and we're moved. We want to like help this mom. And then that has real world application, because then it's like, I see this, and now when I see a homeless person, or I see someone that's living out of their car, or I see someone who just needs some help, it's like, okay, what can I do? Where can I jump in and help? Because I'm thinking about this person's experience now, not just like, oh, I don't have $1 to give you, you know what I mean? Like, it's, now I'm thinking, no, I want to really not just give them a couple of bucks, but like really help them in their life. And so I think that that's one of the really great things about film, is how it can just help us do that.
Yeah, I agree with you. And one of the things I like about films like The Florida Project, though, is that it also, there's this tendency, we talk about poverty porn.
Yeah.
About, this sort of desire to basically produce films that, kind of lives, but treat it like this major melodramatic, almost soap opera thing. Well, one of the great things about The Florida Project is that it isn't all just, suffering and pain.
Right.
It's no, this is how these people live. And this little girl is having a lot of fun, and she's having a great time with her friend, and she has all of these wonderful imaginary adventures, etc. But she's also living in these very bad circumstances. So it isn't treating people like, well, we're just going to consume your suffering for entertainment. Right. It also isn't saying that people who live like this, or anyone really, right, is in a constant state of suffering.
Right.
It actually treats it as this complex world, and like treating people like human beings, full existent human beings who have problems and also have joys.
Yeah. And so then when you see like a mom who's struggling, you see the answer isn't just take her kids away. That's not going to fix the problem. It's, you need to get them both help. You need, and it introduces that. It's I think really great, especially social issue films, not just show you the problem, but also show you that it's not all terrible, like you say, and also show that there are other ways to handle it. It's not just, bureaucracy needs to get involved. It's let's just love each other. Let's just take care of each other. So
yeah, I agree. I do want to mention one more thing that I love about film, and it's kind of related to this, is that it's a very democratic medium. And by that I mean in terms of the way that humanity consumes cinema, right? Film exists on almost every continent on the planet.
Yeah.
And what's really remarkable about it is that we can see, especially now, we can see these films, right? You can show a Hollywood movie in China, and they get to experience that, world. And yes, there are all kinds of cultural issues with that, and there's all kinds of issues of imperialism, but we get to have this exchange where we have this incredibly visual medium where everybody, I can watch films from Nigeria, I can watch films from Mexico and from Canada and from Laos. And all of those things are something that I get to experience and that other people get to experience. And we all get to experience it at the same time, right? And it doesn't matter whether you're incredibly poor or incredibly rich. That's why, in some ways I love streaming so much, is because it gives you more and more access and more people access to different kinds of film and different kinds of experiences and expands that sense of empathy.
Yeah.
And I like that about film. Film was designed to be a democratic medium. It's probably the most democratic medium we have. And I like that about it.
I love that. Yeah. Last year at Sundance, 2020, before everything shut down, I went and saw this film called This Is Not a Burial, It Is a Resurrection. It's from this tiny place in Africa called Lesotho. I was watching this film. It was, I think, the first film I saw at Sundance last year. And I was watching it going, I'm really struggling to follow what's happening. There's a lot of cultural stuff at play that I don't understand, but I'm so glad that I'm getting exposed to this this style of filmmaking, this kind of interesting blend of myth and tradition, and also a real life present day modern like fight that's happening, political fight in this area where people are fighting over water rights and property and things like that. And it was just like, wow, this is fascinating, because I would never have had any idea that this is happening in this part of the world if it wasn't for this random film that I saw at Sundance, that I just got the ticket because I was intrigued by the title. And I even wrote in my review of that movie that, you know, I don't know enough about the history and the culture to say if this is a well done film. I think it's a really important one though, and people should see it for the experience. And then it was so crazy because then at the end of the week, I was standing in line for something else, and you know, when you're at a festival, you just chat with people around you and like, oh, what else have you seen? What's good? And so I was talking to this couple, and the woman was just saying like, oh, you know, yesterday we went and saw this film called This Is Not a Burial, It's a Resurrection. And I was just like, oh, I saw that the other day. And she goes, yeah, you know, I went and saw it because I was reading this review that was like, I don't really understand this movie, but I think people should see it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just got quoted back to myself. What the hell?
That's great. See, and that's the power of being a film critic too, of actually getting to do that. Be like, and that's whenever I see a film that I love, as you know, and I don't write as much criticism as I used to, and I really need to be writing more. This is what I was thinking about, like when I was rewatching Theater of Blood yesterday. I was like, I want to tell everyone how great this is. Let me explain to you how awesome this is, please.
Yes. We need to do more of the written word, and not just like new films, which my Shang-Chi review is coming this weekend, but like, yeah, going back and really diving into the cultural elements of other films and older films, and really taking the time to analyze those. We need to get back into doing more of that.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the other thing. And I think one of the reasons why it's so important that we watch older films is films can also, like you say, films are very representative of their culture, the reality of people living in, you know, 1968, 1981, 1913, right? And it's not necessarily saying that, you know, this is true to life or anything like that. Obviously, people have different experiences over the course of history, right? But film really can give you a window into that, and it can be very simple things. It's just in terms of the way that people dress, the way that they talk, the words that are used, the words that are considered acceptable or not acceptable. And I was watching Cutter's Way, which is a 1980 film, the other day, and this is a film that's like dealing with post-Vietnam War era, that is dealing with alcoholism, and it's all within the context of this murder mystery, which is very odd. But one of the things that I found really interesting is that a lot of what was being said, I'm like, this is kind of the same conversations that we're having right now about this almost doom and gloom attitude, this like the world is terrible and, you know, life is nasty, brutish, and short, that kind of thing. And in watching it, I was like, this is my parents, right? This is the same generation as my parents, a little bit older. And I'm like, well, so this has always been going on basically, but it's that sense of like the post-Vietnam War era is a very dark period in America and a very difficult period in America, and that's fascinating in and of itself. And again, this film can give me a window into that, and it's a film that's made before I was born, about things that happened before I was born and that I will never experience, but I can actually look at that and be like, oh, some of the same conversations were going on in cinema in 1980 that are going on now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thank you for that. And on the subject of evergreen content and conversations, why don't you talk a little bit about what you've been watching recently? Mainly, I mean, Theater of Blood.
All right. Well, I am going to post a review of this. I got the Blu-ray from Kino Lorber. Thank you so much, Kino. I have been waiting for this film to come out on American Blu-ray for like ever since I saw it. It's been on like Amazon, etc. So there might still be places to watch it. I don't know, but it is now out on Kino Blu-ray. It is.
I just checked it out on Hoopla. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. It is, I think, my favorite Vincent Price film, which is saying an awful lot because I adore Vincent Price. I love like 9/10 of his films. And this is also, by the way, his favorite film that he made. And it's also Diana Rigg's favorite film. She said that it was the best film she ever made.
Nice.
So I'm not going to go into too much about it, but the plot of Theater of Blood is about a Shakespearean actor named Edward Lionheart who commits suicide after a group of critics refused to give him a Critics Circle Award. And following his suicide, suddenly these critics begin dying in very graphic ways that are all based on the plays of Shakespeare. So by that I mean the entire film opens with a murder that occurs on the Ides of March, where one of the critics is stabbed to death in a very, very graphic way.
Nice.
So, and then this happens throughout the film. Most of the film is occupied, honestly, in these elaborate murders. Like, that's what the film is about. During this whole thing, basically what we get is Vincent Price doing really hammy Shakespeare, these, grand soliloquies, while the police are trying to figure out, who's killing off these critics. Obviously, the viewer knows who's killing off these critics because we get to watch it all happen. Diana Rigg plays Vincent Price's daughter, who may or may not actually be involved in the murders being committed. She's delicious. He's delicious. It's a great cast. It's like Robert Morley, Coral Brown, Ian Hendry. Some of these great actors who are in this film that is literally just indulging in terrible Shakespeare and murdering critics. It's a fantastic movie. It's hilarious. It's supposed to be funny. It's not intended to be serious. And it's a really great kind of digging into the fact that Shakespeare really is violent. And it's violent. He's violent. He's dark. He's funny. He's melodramatic. It's kind of, in some ways, bringing Shakespeare down to a almost grittier level and saying, like, a lot of Shakespeare really is playing to the groundlings. It's not, we have this idea of Shakespeare as being this high-flown language and everything, and he has beautiful language. But often it's in the context of these ridiculous plays and these ridiculous stories in which people are, cooking other people's children and feeding them to their mothers in pies. Like, that happens in Shakespeare. Mm-hmm. And this film like really goes into that. It's just like, man, Shakespeare's really fucked up.
Yep. It's true. Oh my gosh, I love it.
So, yeah, it's a wonderful film. It's funny. It's like, it's very well paced. It's not too long. It's not too short, and it is quite satisfying.
Nice. Well, I just checked it out from the library, so I'm gonna watch it.
Definitely watch it. Definitely watch it. And I will say the Kino Blu-ray is really pretty. It's really well done. Kino tends to produce good Blu-rays. That it's been refurbished very nicely, and it's really a joy to actually have this available in America. For a long time, this film was just not easy to access.
Nice. Well, I'm gonna have to get my hands on a copy. I still maintain on the subject of Shakespeare that Romeo and Juliet is a comedy, not a tragedy. But anyway.
I don't know if you've ever seen the television show Upstart Crow.
I have not.
It's on, I think it's on BritBox on Amazon Prime. It is honestly worth it, and you could get through. It's 3 seasons. I think you could get through it pretty quickly. But it's a comedy, a situation comedy about William Shakespeare. And one of the things that it does is that each episode is like about Shakespeare writing a different play. Shakespeare is ridiculous. So people questioning him, sort of being like, wait a minute, she's how old? She's like, well, she's 13. It's just like, she's 13. Are you insane? What is wrong with you? Like, it's that kind of thing. One of my favorite episode is one that unpacks the fact that Hamlet is a comedy. And it's so accurate, it just kills me. It's just like, oh my God, it's true. Hamlet is a comedy. Fuck. Because yeah, it is. It's like Shakespeare, you know, he's melodramatic. It's ridiculous. You've got men dressing up as women, dressing up as men, and pretending to be women. Like you've got teenagers who are just like, I'm gonna kill myself. No, I'm gonna kill myself first. It is funny. Like what elevates Shakespeare above his contemporaries is his language, really.
Yeah.
When it really comes down to it, the plots themselves are insane.
Yeah, they are exactly. And I think that all these years people have been reading Shakespeare wrong, and that's why high school kids think he's boring when really he's brilliant and fun.
and honestly, if you ever see a really good Shakespeare production on stage, particularly of the comedies, I got to see a version of Twelfth Night.
Nice.
It's funny, and it points out just how funny Shakespeare really is. And deliberately so. You know, this is not like, you know, he's got fart jokes and dick jokes and like elaborate pranks on people, sometimes very nasty pranks. You know, Shakespeare is funny, he's dark, he's violent, it's extreme. And we really do need to get back to that sometimes. Just be like, you know what, this is fun. This is intended to be fun. It's intended to be entertainment.
Yeah, exactly. Well, a movie that I just watched last night again that just going off of your Theater of Blood, which you love, I watched a movie I love revisited last night, and that was Sunset Boulevard.
Ooh.
Because I haven't watched it in a while, but I love it so much. It's so good. And it's funny because afterwards I was like looking at, because I was just, it has 99% on Rotten Tomatoes. Why does it have 99%? Why isn't it 100? This is a perfect movie. And so I was just kind of scrolling through reviews and just going back to the subject of like, are people dumb? Someone in one of their reviews was like, it borrows heavily from Miss Havisham and Great Expectations. I'm like, no shit. It actually says it's doing that.
It's a feature, not a bug. Like
exactly. Like William Holden actually compares her vocally. Anyway, whatever. Not here nor there. But yeah, no, I love the movie, and every time I watch it, I find just other like I kind of have something that'll just really stick with me, you know, story-wise. And in this viewing, it was going back to the subject of empathy. It was the empathy that DeMille shows, like how he just feels so bad for Norma, and he just is just kind of crushed for her when he realizes like she doesn't have what it takes to survive in the Hollywood, their present day Hollywood. Like she really is a relic of the past, and everyone's just kind of given up on her, and she doesn't know that. And I don't know, it was just interesting because then someone makes a comment about her being kind of a wreck, and he was just like, she couldn't handle the pressure. Like, look at what she was dealing with when she was 17 years old. And it was just like, wow, this is such an empathetic view that you don't necessarily ascribe to like big Hollywood directors and producers, especially of the golden age. And it just, I don't know, I've seen the movie before. I've seen that scene a million times, but it just, I don't know, for some reason particularly struck me this time as just like surprising in its level of empathy, I guess.
It's, that's interesting. So it's been ages since I saw that film. And I never really thought about it like that, but she is a very sympathetic character. Overall,
Yeah.
right? And even though she's venal and egotistical and horrifying sometimes, she's also very sympathetic. You kind of are rooting for her for a lot of the film. And that's interesting to like, I never really thought about DeMille's performance.
Yeah. And so it just, yeah, it particularly struck me, and I was just like, wow, this is really great. And so it just, that was kind of the thing that I took away from this viewing. And I encourage people, if you've never seen it before, I believe it is one of maybe the best films about Hollywood that Hollywood has ever made. And I love movies about Hollywood almost as much as Hollywood does. But I really, Sunset Boulevard is top of the list. It's so great. And I know that they're remaking the musical with Glenn Close. That's been planned for a long time. I hope that it is good. I love Glenn Close. I love the story, but nothing beats the 1950 film, and definitely check it out. It's on Criterion. It's on HBO Max. It's, there's lots of places to watch it.
It's one of the most ubiquitously available.
It's on my
films.
shelf because I have it. So yeah, it is. Anything else you've been watching that you want to chat about?
I did want to mention really quickly, I've been watching a lot of the Jean Harlow films that are currently on the Criterion channel. And first of all, Jean Harlow is delightful. She is, I think, probably one of the most underrated actresses of the pre-code era. And it was really sad because she died very, very young. And so it's very sad to see these films and to be like, God, she's such a talent at the age of 25. What could she have done as she got older? How would she have navigated Hollywood? All of those things. It's very sad in a certain sense to watch her films, be like, she's so great. I'm so sad that we don't have a longer career, that we don't get to see more of her, right?
Yeah.
One of my favorite films from this collection right now is Hold Your Man, which is, I think, 33. It's right on the edge of the pre-code era. It is very pre-code in a lot of ways. But it's Jean Harlow and Clark Gable as sort of con artists, very small-time con artists. But it's a film that's written by Anita Luce, and it takes a turn about halfway through the movie, and then goes to places that I really did not expect, but that is very much about female friendship and camaraderie and support of one another. And it's actually quite moving and sweet, and surprisingly, like, there's a surprising depth to it. And it's funny because I actually looked up, why does this film kind of go the places that it does? Because it deals with things like premarital sex and pregnancy and having a child out of marriage, etc. And apparently, basically, I think it was Sam Goldwyn essentially required Luce to rewrite the ending of the movie because in order to punish the Jean Harlow character for having premarital sex. What the film actually does, she does not get punished at all. This is not a punishment. It is a very different, it goes in directions that are very surprising for the time period and that are really, really beautiful. And I really encourage people to watch it. Like, the description on Criterion doesn't do it justice because it takes this turn. And it's a wonderful film. Harlow, at one point, a woman basically calls her a slut, and Harlow just turns around and punches her, and like literally like punches her. And even like the Gable character is like, I didn't know you had such a mean left. Like, he's just like, holy shit, you just like knocked her down. And it's very satisfying because it's like, yes, thank you, Jean Harlow, for just decking that woman. So I strongly recommend it. Hold Your Man. I think it's 1933.
Awesome. Yeah, I was looking at the Jean Harlow movies last night. I was gonna watch one, but then I was just like, no, I'm in the mood for comfort. Well, not comfort, but an old favorite. So Yeah, so but those are definitely, I added them to my list, so I'll be working my way through those. The only other real significant thing, well, I saw a movie, but I'm kind of embargoed on it, so I'll talk about it next week. But I the only other thing really substantial that I watched this week was What We Do in the Shadows, which is back finally.
Yes.
Season 3 is off to a great start. It's interesting because Jermaine Clement has now stepped away. So he and Taika are still involved, but they're not involved in the day-to-day. And so I was really nervous about what it would do to the show to have a new showrunner. But so far, with 2 episodes, I'm loving it. It's so funny. It does seem a little bit just a little bit, and maybe it's because I was tired. That's also possible. I need to rewatch them, but it felt a little bit less silly than we've seen in previous seasons. I don't know if you experienced that too.
I not particularly, actually. I think that, I mean, I'll be interested to see where they go with this. I like this whole idea about them spoilers for anyone who hasn't watched it yet, them joining the Vampire Council, becoming the Vampire Council, basically, because Guillermo's murdered everyone. And I really liked it. I liked some of the things that they're doing with the Nandor Guillermo relationship.
Yeah.
I think that's really, there are a lot of interesting things that they can do with that. And
well, there have been a lot of things that have been hinted at for 2 years, and now it's like, oh, they're really gonna go that direction. This is cool.
Yeah, they're actually dealing with, the potential for feelings for each other. I'm like, oh my God, like, wow. Yeah.
I can't wait to one day see a scene where they are in couples therapy and
well, yeah, exactly. And I like that. I like kind of the shifting dynamics. I like the fact that Guillermo, with his discovery of his powers, etc., is becoming this like sort of badass, right? And at one point, he crawls into the vents and things, and it's just like spying on them. And Nandor's like, oh, he's just a rascal. He's a little rascal. Just like, you go back to your room.
I love them so much. Nadia is just as hilarious as ever. Like, just, doesn't want to be bothered with anything that she doesn't care about. And she just has no problem telling the men to just shut up. I love it.
Yeah.
Laszlo's like, I don't want to be a bureaucrat.
See, my favorite part of that episode was basically where they're like, oh my God, we're going to be added to the Vampire Council. We're going to be so powerful. And he was like, fuck this. I don't want that. I became a vampire to drink blood and fuck forever. Like, that's all that I want to do. He's just totally like, nope. Like, they're all fighting over the throne, and he's just like, they're idiots. Like, I don't know why they're doing this. He just, yeah, I really like that, because and Nadja and Nandor, like, getting into these wars, etc.
Well, what's great is like giving that, like, introducing this element of actual power outside of their house. It just like it solidifies, that's not the right word, it just, like, I guess, reinforces their personalities, their natural inherent personalities even more. It's nobody's going against what you've known them to be up till now. It's just like making it even deeper.
Yeah.
And it's great, and it's hilarious, and I just love the show so much, and I'm so happy it's back.
Yes, I am looking forward to where it is going.
Yes, can't wait for more. So, all right, any other stuff you wanted to mention? Any final?
I think that's it.
Cool. Well, we're gonna wrap this up because I got to get to the farmers market. I love Saturday mornings. I really do. Anyway, well, thank you all so much for listening to this episode. Once again, we're kind of all over the place, but I hope that you at least enjoy the randomness of our conversations, and I hope you get something out of it. We would like to thank our patrons that help make the show possible. That is Adriana, Ali, Heather, James, Kathleen, Carriata, Mason, Matt, Matthew, Michelle, Monty, Nanina, Robert, Steve, Sharon, Tao, and Will. Thank you so much. And if you would like to subscribe and be part of their number, you can go to patreon.com/citizendame. And as a subscriber, you get early access to episodes, you get bonus episodes, and for our $5 and $7 levels, you also get invitations to private screenings, which we're getting ready to start up another one for September. We're going to be announcing the date on that one soon. These are virtual. You don't have to go sit in a movie theater because we are not monsters during a pandemic. And also we're on opposite sides of the country, so that wouldn't really work anyway. But anyway, I digress. That's what I do best. So if you will, but also if you would like to just send a couple dollars our way and you don't want to subscribe, that's cool. We love it. ko-fi.com/citizendame. We also have our Zazzle store. There's still the same old stuff there, but go check it out. Zazzle.com/citizendamepod. New stuff is coming. Lauren, I haven't sent it to you, but I've got new mock-ups for the new logo, so I'm gonna send those to you this week. So yeah, anyway, like, it's really happening, people. It's really happening. And you can follow our adventures on our website, citizendamepod.com, where I will have, by the time you're listening to this, the Shang-Chi review is up. Hopefully Lauren's Theater of Blood review is coming very, very soon.
Yes, I have it written. I just have to edit it.
Well, there you go. There you go. And we got some more good stuff coming your way too. I mean, it's festival season, so I'm going to be seeing a lot of stuff and telling you all about what you should watch and what you should run away from very, very fast. And if you have thoughts and you would like to share them with us, but you don't want to do that via social media, you can email us, citizendamepod@gmail.com. But if social media is your thing and you want to follow us on those platforms for all of our unfiltered thoughts, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at citizendamepod, and also on Letterboxd at citizendame. Now, we don't really post reviews there, but we do have lots of great lists, and we try to make new lists related to whatever we've been talking about on each episode. So I don't know what we'll do for this week, but lots of great stuff about great female directors, writers, great horror films, all kinds of stuff. So find us there. You can also find us individually. Lauren, where are you?
I am on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at LH Business.
And I am on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Karen M. Peterson. So thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Bye.
What I've been doing is I've been sneaking out when they go and slumber. Colin Robinson heads out to work by 9:45, so I'm up by then. I've been coming up here and doing all the things that need to be done to keep the house functioning. Of course they don't notice because they just think it happens automatically. It doesn't. I do it.
Heads up.
I mean, I should really just consider escaping and leaving, never coming back. Especially because they're considering, killing me. But I just wonder what would happen if I wasn't here to help them out. They're like family. I know, codependent much.